For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. On infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections.
If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious.
Violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses, and burning down buildings.
They are coming after me because I am fighting for you. That's what's happening.
Greetings, fellow thought criminals, and thank you for joining the Insurrection. I'm Michael Lauber. This is Derrick Evans. It's another glorious day in America's new golden age, and we've got a lot to discuss.
Yes, we do, Mike. Super excited for the show today, guys. As always, like, share, subscribe, all those good things, whatever platform you're watching on. If you're watching live, hop in the chat. I read all the comments. I'll do my very best to give you guys a shout out, kind of like this. We got Kelly's song already popping off over here in the Rumble chat. We appreciate you guys. And with that, we got an awesome show lineup for you guys today.
Absolutely. And before we get into the real news of the day, we've got to cover this. Rosie O'Donnell has fled America, will return when citizens have equal rights. She's going to be headed to Ireland. They've already warned their people to expect a inbound famine. And they've said, you know, what have they done to deserve this attack on their culture and their people?
Oh, Rosie. You know what? I already loved President Trump. Like, I didn't need another reason to love this man, but the fact that he got Rosie O'Donnell to self-deport is absolutely amazing and a win for all of America as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, you know, it makes me wonder if we can expect to see her name pop up on, say, the Diddy list or maybe the Epstein list whenever we finally see those. We got some other updates there on the Diddy list. We'll get to that here in a minute. But to get into our main stories so we don't bury the lead. Shred and burn all documents. USAID staff ordered to destroy evidence on Tuesday. And let me go ahead and pull the next headline too. White House responds to email from senior USAID official ordering destruction of documents. And I got to be honest, I got to read through this again to see exactly what happened. Because yesterday, as this story was sort of breaking, it made it sound like this was a rogue person within the USAID telling them to destroy any classified documents they had in their safe. A lot of these, I guess, are just supporting documents for where funding is, you know, where the money is getting laundered to. And then some of them were personal documents and emails. But then we're hearing, we saw a response from the Trump administration that like leads me to believe that they're the ones that ordered this. But I don't know. To me, I would think I wouldn't want anybody at any of these agencies destroying any documents whatsoever until everything can be reviewed.
Oh, absolutely. Especially at USAID, considering that we already know how corrupt that agency is and how tied into the Democrat Party and the NGOs and all the fraud and the illegal funding of well, I guess technically legal, but the backdoor funding of a lot of these things that they've been doing and pushing. So I'm with you. There should be no destruction of any of these documents. In fact, anybody who's caught destroying documents, unless they've been, ordered directly, by President Trump and his team directly to do so, then they should be thrown in prison for destroying that evidence. Because that's really, to me, how important these documents really are to tying everything together. I want to give a quick shout out to Thaddeus and Donna Groves over here in the X chat. Appreciate you guys for tuning in today.
Yeah, I guess that's really my thing too. Is I don't want to. nothing should be destroyed. Everything should be reviewed, even if it's something that is innocuous or somewhat innocent, or even some of these personal communications. Because one thing that they haven't really gotten to yet are all the Hatch Act violations of people doing political activity on the government dime during their time. So some of those emails or other communications may prove that some of these people were involved, or who was contacting them and organizing these things. This is something that's been, in my opinion, at least really underreported. But I know this is a tool, another arrow in the quiver for eliminating many of these wasteful and rebellious government employees that refuse to just do their job, keep their head down, that can't leave their own personal politics out of their work, and sabotage Trump's administration the first time, and as we've seen, are attempting to sabotage or slow walk things on round two.
Absolutely, and plus we've also discovered now how much deeper this corruption really is. I always tell everybody I think that the goal with the first administration, the first time around, was to drain the swamp. I think President Trump had every intention of doing so, but I don't think that him or anyone else, for that matter, truly understood just how deep the swamp really was, how powerful and strong it was, all the different tentacles it's got its tentacles into. And so I think that was all about exposure. And the second time around here, and I think that in a weird way, we're very blessed and fortunate that they did steal the 2020 election. It allowed President Trump to weed out a lot of these infiltrators who had infiltrated his circle. Got rid of those people, allowed him to learn a lot more as well in terms of all this, allowed him to some time to prepare, and now you are seeing them coming in and really just upping the exposure right now. But they hit the ground running from day one, and they've said multiple times they're going to be shutting down a lot of this stuff, and they already have, and so I think that this is going to be, I think what we're seeing now in this term is what a lot of us had expected in 2016. And that's not a knock on President Trump. That just goes back to up until that point, we did not realize, myself included, how deep this thing was. And so looking back, we had unrealistic expectations in 2016, but we didn't know that at the time. So I think right now we're finally seeing all those things come to fruition.
Yeah, and I really think that 4 years in the wilderness provided exactly what Trump and all his advisors, the whole team around him, what they needed. It provided them that window that they needed to really understand the problem in D.C., just how deep the corruption ran, and to formulate a plan to dismantle it. And that's what we're seeing right now, and that's part of why the left has been so off guard. And I can't even say that they're on defense. I mean, they're just running around screaming like a chicken with its head cut off. They have no idea what to do or how to push back against any of this, and that's why we're seeing them just disintegrate right now. We got some good news too that I'm sure you won't see reported by the mainstream media anywhere. Bidenflation cools. Consumer prices rise less than expected. Smallest month-to-month increase since August 2024. And then from Zero Hedge. Core consumer price inflation slowest in 4 years as energy and airfare costs tumble. And also, the price of eggs has gone down about $2 on average so far this week from where it was. So hopefully they can stop whining and bitching about that. But yeah, you won't see this covered anywhere, that we're already starting to see as Biden's policies get pushed out, we're beginning to see a recovery, and at least in the sense of inflation, because we're not just throwing trillions and trillions of dollars at problems that imaginary problems, or laundering money to President Biden's friends, DNC loyalists. So this is going to make an impact. Now, that being said, we're certainly not out of the woods yet. I mean, don't be surprised at all if there is still a stock market, a real crash, real corrections, and consequences here and around the world. Because even if we're able to stabilize things here, we count on the rest of the world as trading partners. That's who keeps a lot of people here employed as we export different goods, and as trade imbalances are starting to be corrected. So we may still have some tough months ahead of us. There's a lot of new jobs coming. There's a lot of companies that have promised to rebuild or move positions here, start building cars, data centers, and other things here in the United States. But these things are going to take time. So there is going to be more pain before we get to a recovery, but it will be a real recovery with solid footing under it once that happens.
Absolutely. Plus, mortgage rates are down over the last 6 weeks as well. And then gas prices. This is according to Gas Buddy. Gas prices are the lowest they've been in 4 years. This is the lowest the gas prices have been since March of 2021. My question to those on the left: egg prices are down, inflation's cooled down, gas prices are down. You spent the very first days. I mean, President Trump swore in, and then the very next day, you guys are saying, "Well, how come the egg prices haven't come down yet?" President Trump is to blame for all of this. Well, now that the prices of everything are coming down and the economy already, not even 2 months in, is already looking better, are you now going to use that same energy to give President Trump the credit that he deserves for fixing this the Biden economy that was destroying our country? He's already we haven't fixed it yet, but he's already taken the ship and turned it around. We're starting to face the other direction, and it took less than 2 months to do that. Kind of the same thing with the border. It seems to me like, in terms of the economy, all we needed was a new president.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the truth of the matter. The other thing that wasn't mentioned in either of these articles that is a factor as people are being deported and self-deporting and opening up jobs for Americans, you will start to see a drop in unemployment. We saw a minor tick up last month. And of course, that's what they focus on. Our media, these liars and the dinosaur media are going to point to any negative news when it's President Trump, and they will put their blinders on and only focus on, either lie or focus on tiny elements that show slight improvements when it's Biden or some other leftist in office. So yeah, I don't expect to see this story reported anywhere, but there is even more good news, more signs that things are returning. So despite the market downturn in the S&P 500 last week, futures rebound from worst plunge of 2025 as Trump meets more CEOs. And again, these were already fruitful. And sorry, I'm blanking on what company. Oh, Siemens over in Germany. They're going to open a new production facility here in the United States. And I think that one's expected to employ about 20,000 people. So more good news, but this is going to be ignored because right now, the only thing they can have that they can focus on is, how horrible all these illegal aliens feel now that they're getting deported, and they can just focus on any bad economic news because, God forbid, they report anything positive about President Trump or his administration.
Well, it's one of those things where the American people are not used to having an actual business person running our country as a business. For decades, probably generations now, our country's been ran almost as a world charity. And the president was, the head of that charity, if you will, and obviously self-enriched themselves along the way, and sold us out along the way in order to do so. And now, for the first time, we've got a president who doesn't need anyone's money, doesn't want anyone's money. He's, treating and running this as a business. And people were shocked by this. And so you got us who are happy about that. And we're like, finally, running this as a business the way it's supposed to be. But on the other hand, you have these other people who look at this as something brand new. Anything new scares a certain group of people, regardless of how good it is. And then you have these other people who are, number one, they don't know how to handle this. And partly because the media continues with their lies of everything. The tariffs are going to drive up the costs of all these different things, and they're not smart enough to see the long haul picture there of what that's going to do, as you pointed out, with bringing these companies and building and manufacturing and bringing tens of thousands of jobs at a time, good paying jobs too, not minimum wage type of jobs here to the United States of America. This is going to be huge for the long-term success of our country. And regardless of who wins future elections, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, I hope that they will continue looking at this as a business, from a business standpoint, and continue running our country as a business moving forward.
Yeah, agreed. And we got even more good news. Something else, the media has been telling us is impossible. But we've got a Ukrainian ceasefire agreement, and the U.S. will be resuming some aid. Now, from what I understand, what I read through already is no more weapons for Ukraine. This is going to be much lower cost, some food, humanitarian daily rations, some medical supplies, water, blankets, things like that for their civilians to tide them over until Russia withdraws and this agreement is finalized. But Ukraine has already agreed to this. We expect a response from Russia within the next 24 hours. So again, the media keeps saying it's impossible. Trump's on the bad path. They're cheering for this European plan for a continuous war over there behind Macron and Starmer. But that's not going to happen. Again, Ukraine has no power. Europe can't fund an endless war over there. If they want to deploy their own people over there, that's not going to be good for anybody, and that'll expand the conflict. But again, President Trump is doing what's best for humanity, ending the conflict over there, and trying to facilitate peace between Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah, well, hey, shout out really quick to Sean and FG over there in the Getter chat. Appreciate you guys for tuning in as always. It's funny, this time last week, all these leftist and even center-left people, all the media, they were complaining, saying that, President Trump and J.D. Vance mistreated Zelensky and that it was like the worst thing ever, and the negotiations have failed, blah, 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 blah. Here we are over the last week. Zelensky came out and publicly apologized to President Trump, J.D. Vance, and the American people for the way he acted, and said that he was very grateful for everything. And then a day or so later, this was yesterday now, Zelensky agrees to the ceasefire. You got to remember, just last week he was sitting in the Oval Office and he didn't even want to entertain the idea of a ceasefire. Like he was upset that they even mentioned a ceasefire, and that's one of the things that kind of threw the meeting off the rails. Is President Trump and VP J.D. Vance quickly realized that he was not there for an actual peace negotiation. He was there for the media hits and that sort of things. And that's one of the things that made the meeting fall apart. So once again, though, less than a week later, President Trump has been proven to be correct in the way that he handled this entire situation, because you got Zelensky now, who is publicly bending the knee on the world stage, apologizing to President Trump and the American people, and then openly saying that they would love a ceasefire. So this is incredible news. The ceasefire, as President Trump has pointed out multiple times, is the first step towards negotiating a true peace deal, if you will. Probably gets us 75% of the way there. And look, even if you hate President Trump, I'm not going to try to convince you to love the guy the way that we do. But even if you hate President Trump and you love Ukraine, you should still be happy with a ceasefire. It doesn't matter if you disagree with the way President Trump got the ceasefire. It shouldn't matter, if President Trump hurt people's feelings along the way or whatever it is. You should at least be willing to admit and accept and say thank you to President Trump. This was a good thing, getting a ceasefire. Now, we still got to get Russia to agree at this point, but I think that from what we had saw, getting Zelensky to agree to it was potentially a much harder sell, if you will.
Oh, yeah, agreed. Yeah, because Putin's already made it clear that he would agree to terms of a ceasefire as long as Ukraine agreed to them, and that he ultimately wants peace. Now, again, the left is extremely upset that Zelensky is going to have to give up some territory as part of this peace agreement. But at the end of the day, there is no other option. Russia now controls that territory, and as we stated many, many times, a big chunk of this is Russian-speaking people, again, that lived within Ukraine's borders that honestly, they were being discriminated against and attacked by the Ukrainian government. There was an ongoing hot and cold civil war going on in a few regions there. So, at the end of the day, hopefully this peace agreement will also be better for everyone. And again, I think reestablishing trade and ties with Russia instead of treating them like this boogeyman enemy like we have been for the last several years is ultimately going to be good for all of us. This will also help drive a wedge between Russia and China, which is something else we really need to consider. We don't want those two nations working hand in hand like they have been against U.S. interests. So this peels off part of that and puts China in a much worse position as our tariffs are beginning to affect them. They're trying to get Walmart to absorb the cost of all the tariffs right now for the goods that are produced in China, and Walmart's reconsidering and possibly moving some of the production and buying from different companies, different distributors, so they won't have to face those tariffs. So again, we hold the power in a lot of this, and all these leftists, they're out there whining about us flexing our muscle. We've been on the wrong end of a lot of these trade deals for decades, and in many cases, it's other nations not meeting their obligations, continuing to put tariffs on our products in violation of agreements that were made, but nobody talks about that. Instead, they talk about this big, mean bully, Donald Trump, and now he's going to hurt all these countries by putting either reciprocal tariffs on them or forcing them to absolve or remove the tariffs that they have on U.S. products.
Absolutely. So, quick shout out to Kristen and Caroline for Congress in the X chat. Appreciate you guys here. Thaddeus says Trump should be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for the ceasefire alone. I agree 100%. And then Thaddeus also says Zelensky was always going to have to give up some territory to end this war. And, I would almost argue that is he really giving up territory to end the war, considering that he's already lost that territory to Russia? I mean, it's not like they're saying we're going to go ahead and I see you, even though you guys still control this portion, we're going to make you give that up too. That's not what they're saying. But I'm hopefully we'll be able to break this down on tomorrow's show, or maybe a show next week. We'll have to do some more research over the weekend. But I've done enough research on it to talk about it a little bit. People are really misunderstanding this whole ordeal with Russia, Ukraine. I know a lot of people understand it used to all be part of the Soviet Union at one point, but what a lot of people don't realize is that when they broke into these individual countries like this, there was an agreement that if at any point they were to default or were unable to protect themselves, defend themselves, sort of thing, that they would automatically go back to being the Soviet Union. Also, Crimea was not technically part of Ukraine. It's a very big gray area as to what it was. It was a kind of its own little country there, believe it or not. And when Russia took that back over, but legally, from the contract standpoint of what they had originally signed, it was Russia's. It was supposed to go back to Russia. And so, it's unfortunate that we've got the mainstream media here in America who's painted this narrative as Russia being these the boogeyman and the aggressors, and maybe they are. I don't think that they are from what I've seen, but I wish that the media would at least just share the truth and let people decide for themselves, as opposed to all this sensationalizing everything and building it up to more than what it is, and painting Russia as these evil people who are just taking over another country. That doesn't seem to be the case from everything that I've read and researched. I've got a lot of notes sitting over here right now, but there's a few other things I want to check into before I go on the record about that. I want to confirm a couple of the things that I've looked into over here before I put my foot in my mouth, accidentally put my foot in my mouth or something at some point. So, but it's much deeper than what people are truly understanding. And that doesn't make me a Putin sympathizer. That makes me somebody who's seeking truth. And there's a big difference there.
Yeah, there's a lot of complexities that go on here, specifically to this issue that our media just ignores because they're inconvenient to the narrative that they want to push forward. Guys, we got to take a quick break, hear from one of our sponsors, and then we'll be right back with even more.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Thank you for staying with us. And again, the best way to support our program and all the programs on Ex American News is by supporting our sponsors. Get yourself some original MyPillows for $14.99. Use code Insurrection for the deepest discounts. And, again, I've said before, I'm a huge fan of the slippers. They make wonderful throw blankets. The towels are fantastic, super soft, very absorbent, and again, priced. They're made to last too. That's the other thing. They're priced well, and you're getting high quality. And their products are primarily made here in the U.S. Well, let's go ahead and just jump into our next story here because we've got a lot on the plate today. Lee Zeldin notifies 8 recipients of $20 billion from Biden's EPA slush fund that their grants have been terminated. Well, these 8 money launderers for, I guess NGOs and entities, if we want to be charitable, are big mad. Several of them are already threatening lawsuits. But again, this is purely money laundering. A lot of this stuff has gone to these entities. And as we saw with Stacey Abrams, a lot of it was essentially vote buying programs, prior to the election.
That's exactly what it was. I'm going to clear some chats really quick first, though. We give a shout out to Brian Eastwood over here, Liberty Bell 4K. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and watching the show. I also wanted to say, Kristen says over here that her stepmom is from Ukraine and she is pro-Russia, and we've run into that from a lot of people actually, in that same situation. But yeah, the USAID stuff. This is 100% money laundering that's been taking place here. That's exactly what it is. And that's part of the reason I believe you see the Democrats right now struggling and trying to figure out how to respond to everything that's taking place right now, because their funding has been cut off. Their little groups have also been cut off. So before, they probably just sent out a couple messages, made a couple phone calls, and they would funnel $1 billion into some sort of messaging group to combat everything that's going on right now. And that has been cut off, and they don't have the what's the word I'm looking for? The organic infrastructure to combat everything that President Trump and the Republicans are doing right now. And I think that's one of the reasons that they're kind of freaking out. I think that's also why you don't see the Summer of Love burning down entire cities right now. They're forced to be more strategic and more pointed and more direct, because they can't pay to get thousands and thousands of people out there. They can probably only pay for dozens now. And that's why I believe they're targeting the Tesla centers directly. Whereas before, I think they would have attacked that entire city, burnt down that entire block just to get the Tesla center. And it wouldn't have been as obvious as what they were doing. But now they're forced to be more directed, because they don't have all the funding to go after, the things the way that they used to before President Trump came in and started cutting all this funding away. But this is incredible. I mean, we're talking about $20 billion in just the EPA alone. And here's what sucks. We have got so much debt in this country right now, and we found so much fraud, that when you hear $20 billion, it doesn't seem like a lot, because we're $36 trillion in debt. I mean, myself included. It's like we've been desensitized into what 20 billion really means, if you will. And I think that is something that even myself, I have to stop and step back and take this into the context of what it really is. $20 billion is a lot of money that they were using to push their fake climate change agenda.
Oh, yeah. I mean, $20 billion is unfortunately just the tip of the iceberg. But right now, the left's entire funding infrastructure is under siege as it's all unravels in front of them, not to mention their indoctrination infrastructure. We reported yesterday that $1 trillion of funding went out the door for DEI programs under Biden. So that's in 4 years, $1 trillion. And now a lot of those people are unemployed, which means not only are they not able to do this harm in private businesses and throughout government entities. This is $1 trillion that Biden basically put towards reinstitutionalizing racism and discrimination within the government and within the private sector. Their allies in banking have backed down from it. Their allies in with most corporations are backing down from it. I mean, for some reason, Costco decided to embrace it, but just about everybody else is walking away from this insanity. And as Americans learn more and more about what they were funding and how this was done behind the scenes, this was hidden from them, they're getting more and more furious with the left and Democrat Party. And we're going to discuss this more later. But their approval and their private donations, even small donor donations, continue to collapse because they feel like the party is there to enrich themselves, not to pursue what they were telling their voters they're going after. I mean, some of it obviously they were through this funding from U.S. taxpayer dollars, but they don't feel like their party represents them or cares about actually furthering the goals that they want. And, I think it's a good thing. Hopefully, by 2026, this party's in shambles, and maybe we get a third party, like say maybe some of the level-headed libertarians to push them off the ballot, and maybe we can continue our two-party system, but it'll be with two parties that are relatively sane and actually care about America and care about the people here.
Yeah, well, I wanted to quantify this. Once again, I love doing this to try to put it in perspective. 1 billion seconds, not 20 billion, 1 billion seconds equals over 31 years. Okay, so that kind of puts it in more perspective for us to understand how much money we're really talking about here. And then Brian, first of all, shout out to Stacy over here in the X chat. Appreciate you for tuning in. And Brian has a really good question. Brian Eastwood, it says, is USAID, the deep state, going after InfoWars? We kind of talked about yesterday with everything going on with InfoWars. I don't know if you saw this, Mike. I don't think we got it covered for the show, but the one guy was swatted as well. One of the other hosts there, I can't remember his name now. He was swatted 2 times in the last 24 hours. He put out a post this morning that he was swatted again for his second time around 2 a.m. this morning, where he was woken up to his name being called over a loudspeaker to come outside unarmed. He goes out. He said he's assuming he was held at gunpoint. He doesn't know because he was blinded by all the lights. And they came in and handcuffed him and then went in to check on his family. And somebody called pretending to be him, saying he was going to harm his family. But, that's a really good question. InfoWars has been, and Alex Jones have been fighting back against the deep state for quite some time now. And that's a really good question in terms of, I hadn't thought about that. What are your thoughts there? Do you think USAID could be the ones that are behind these attacks on InfoWars?
I wouldn't be surprised if it was a former recipient of USAID, because now their paycheck has dried up. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised, because a lot of these entities, keep in mind, they're giving them to like a lot of Soros's foundations, pop-up entities apparently from Podesta and many others, and Stacey Abrams. Now, I do think the greater likelihood is that it is, some random leftist doing this, calling this in, maybe even somebody that lives by them. And let's not forget, it's not going to be, it may take a little bit of time if they took countermeasures to try to block who they are, but we'll probably be able to track them down at some point, especially if it's the same person that called in both these swattings. It's terrible that, this ought to be looked at as attempted murder, because that's what you're trying to do. When you're sending a SWAT team over to somebody's house on a false call like this, you're hoping that something happens and they're taken out by the SWAT team. This isn't just like a prank, and we've seen it happen before with people when all of a sudden their door gets kicked in. Somebody kicked in my door unannounced. I'd grab a gun, point it at them, and if the SWAT team thinks you're getting ready to harm somebody or you have hostages in there, they're going to take you out because you look like a threat, even though in reality you're just trying to defend your own property because somebody kicked your door in. So that's what they're hoping for. They're hoping when they make these calls that somebody gets murked.
Absolutely. I would argue that this is terrorism to swat somebody like that, because, terrorism, I'm looking up the definition of it. I know we all know what it is. I'll try to, be precise here. It says is the use of force or violence against persons or property in violation of the criminal laws of the United States for purposes of intimidation, coercion, or ransom. And they are 100% doing this as a way to attempt to put fear into, and his name is Chase Geyer. Thank you to FG in the Getter chat, as well as Brian over here in the X chat for giving me the name. But this is domestic terrorism. They are doing this in a way for targeting them over their political ideology, and they're doing it as a way to put fear into them, if nothing else. And probably in the back of their head, they're probably hoping that something even worse happens, I would imagine, is what some of these people are hoping when this happens. And the same thing for the attacks on the Tesla center dealerships. That is terrorism, what they are doing, because once again, they are targeting that property because it's owned by Elon Musk, and they're targeting that property because Elon Musk is using Doge to cut government waste. So they are, because they disagree with the political ideology of InfoWars, and because they disagree with the political ideology of Elon Musk, They are now targeting their property and their homes and all this other stuff to cause destruction and put fear, or at least attempting to put fear into those people. That is the literal definition of terrorism. Now, they are technically considered domestic terrorists because they're here on the homeland. If this was happening in another country, it'd be, foreign terrorists, but these are domestic terrorists. And I believe that, I'm at the point where I'm sick of the patty cake politics and the strongly worded letters. Go ahead, make it official, label this as an act of domestic terrorism, and start arresting these people on domestic terrorist charges. And now, before anybody, gets their panties in a wad or anything like that, I want to make it, remind everyone that even those on the left, especially, that the government labeled all of us who even attended January 6th as domestic terrorists for peacefully protesting. So the precedent has already been set in terms of that. And what these people are doing is much more targeted, much more direct, much more violent, much more putting people at safety at risk. This is 100% domestic terrorism. They need to be labeled as such, and they need to be arrested and prosecuted for domestic terrorism.
Agree, exactly. Yeah, that is how this should be handled, whether it's the swattings or attacking the Tesla dealerships. Now, if they just show up and protest, whatever, that's not terrorism. But the minute they start firebombing or shooting up these dealerships, because they're also attacking private Tesla owners now. There's numerous stories of private owners getting their vehicles shot up, set on fire, damaged, or whatever else. And this is, like you said, the literal definition of terrorism. They're using violence to achieve political ends, to terrify people into either, not voting or, going along with their agenda. And that is how it should be treated. These people are literal terrorists. So, maybe they're not Al-Qaeda. They're not bombing random people at different, events or targeting U.S. embassies or anything yet. But, again, I don't exactly think that's a stretch for the kind of moonbats that we're talking about here. And, including this guy that apparently set himself on fire at a Tesla dealership last night. Same thing. Whenever he stops smoking, they need to slap the handcuffs on him and prosecute him. Same thing. I don't care how bad it is. But as long as we're treating this with kid gloves, it's going to continue. If we start sending a message or going after some of these groups that are funding it, since we have the guy on video now saying that one entity or another paid him, I think it was $200 to be there. So go after these. They're funding terrorism. So time to go after them, go after their assets, and shut them down. Again, we need to take advantage of this situation is right now. The left is already crippled. It's time to destroy them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at the point like we need to pin our ears back and go even harder after this whole everything. The way I look at it is we've got, I want to say 4 years because, President Trump's got a 4-year term, but realistically you get 2 years guaranteed. We don't know what's going to happen in the midterms. We don't know. We don't have a clue. But right now we have control of the presidency, the Senate, and the House. We've got 2 years for sure that we can go in and make generational changes to our country. We've got, and to me, I believe the opportunity to save our country. I don't believe our country was headed on a path of being successful. I believe we were headed on the path of destruction, and I think that was their intention, is to destroy our country. And we've got an opportunity now to actually do something about it. And I've said it on the show multiple times leading up to President Trump being sworn in and everything. There will be, I believe, anyways, I've at least accepted this, that there will be some short-term pain in the process of that, because you to rip a Band-Aid off of this size and this magnitude, there's going to be some short-term pain for everyone involved. But I'm okay with that if that's going to lay the foundation for our country to not only be successful, but for my children and grandchildren to grow up in a country where they have freedom and individual liberty. The Constitution is still there, which is going to protect our natural God-given rights from the government infringing on those. Those are the most important things to me. So if we have a little bit of short-term pain in order to get that long-term success, I'm here for it. I'm okay with it. But I just hope that people have accepted that reality and know that it's very possible that happens. And I'm here for it, though. Sign me up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to go ahead and go to our next break, and then we're going to be right back with even more.
Well, hello, everybody. It's Annie Cyrus. Welcome to my art studio where all the magic happens. This is the station for painting, and that is the station for all the resin art I do. If you want to check out my art, all you gotta do is go to lutfstudio.com. But I'm sure, or at least I hope, I'll see you at lutfstudio.com.
Thank you for staying with us. And again, the best way to support our program and all the programs on X American News is by supporting our sponsors. Go to lutfstudios.com, buy an original piece of art, handmade by Annie Cyrus. Again, that's going to help us keep bringing you the news the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear, and you're going to get a unique, one-of-a-kind, handmade piece from Annie Cyrus. And again, that's how we're going to keep on the air and keep the message going. Well, we got more good news for us and bad news for the left, my favorite kind. Department of Education to cut its workforce in half. Also, I want to encourage you guys, you're going to start seeing more stories pop up from the Liberty Daily. This is if you guys remember the Drudge Report, this is sort of similar to the Drudge Report, but they haven't gone insane and turned into, TDS sufferers. So we're going to start pulling more headlines from them over there. And again, I would strongly encourage you to go bookmark it and get some of your news from their site. Again, the Liberty Daily.
I'm trying to find the exact quote because I don't want to paraphrase. This is a pretty big quote from, here it is. So Linda McMahon is the Secretary of Education, Department of Education. And she was quoted and said, it was on Fox News this morning. She said, the directive to me clearly is to shut down the Department of Education, which is absolutely incredible. And then let me find one more here that I didn't want to get this wrong. And then CNN was reporting that Education Secretary Linda McMahon said today that cutting nearly 50% of the agency's workforce is the first course of action in shutting down the Department of Education, which President Trump has vowed to do. This is absolutely incredible. I'm so excited for this. There's been so many people who wanted this to happen. Obviously, there's going to be like a gradual step, not a gradual, but a step towards that. It's not going to all happen at one time. But I was reading that I think that 25% roughly of the money going to the federal Department of Education by the time it goes through all the bureaucracy and all the other stuff, about only 25% of the money actually gets trickled down to the actual education of the students. And this is what the left, it's really frustrating to me that these people on the left are not capable of thinking for themselves. Like they hear shutting down the federal Department of Education, like, oh my God, we no longer have our government babysitters to send our kids to school. They're shutting down the government schools. No, we're not. No, we're not. First of all, I'd be all for that as well. I'd shut it all down. I don't even care at this point. That's where I'm at. But that's not what we're saying here. The money that we're just shutting down the federal Department of Education. There's still 50 individual state departments of education that exists out there. We're just cutting out the middleman and going to give the money directly to the states and do it that way. I don't understand how anyone could be against that if they actually sat down and looked and saw what the end result or at least the end goal what was going to be, which is going to be more money going directly to the students or more money going back to the taxpayers. Either we give the same amount of money to education as we've been given and just give that money directly to the states. So instead of 25%, you'd get 50% or whatever going to the students, which would be incredible. Or we just say, well, we just taken all that money that was wasted and we're going to give it back to the American people. I'm fine with either one for the record. I'm not here to try to split hairs and to dissect every single little thing. Like I'm here to cause chaos right now. I don't care about all the fine details. I want somebody to come in there, and which seems what President Trump and Doge is doing, is just grab the table and just flip the whole thing over right now and just watch all the pieces scatter and watch the toddlers, the left, just scream and cry because their games got flipped over and upside down. That's what I'm here for. We'll figure out how to build it back and restructure it later.
Yeah, because anything's better than what we've got right now. Because we already know a lot of this money has been used to strong arm school districts into indoctrinating their students with the LGBTQIA plus tranny madness propaganda, or other institutionalized discrimination through DEI programs, teaching this false history from the 1619 Project. This has been their pet. And let's keep in mind too, this is one of the agencies that's still fighting that they got some Obama or Biden appointed judge to go in and block DOJ from really going through and revealing where a lot of this money is going to, how it's being laundered to different entities, because it isn't just going to schools and education, it's going to numerous NGOs and other leftist groups. And again, we're not uncovering large amounts of money going to any kind of right-wing cause through any of this. Otherwise, you would have seen the dinosaur media screaming about it from the rafters. So this is all gone to support the left and their causes, picking your pocket to further their political agenda. So that's what they're upset about. They're scared that even more schemes are going to get unveiled. The American people are going to get even more upset with these leftists. And again, it's eliminating a lot of their supporters' cushy jobs that they've had at our expense for years. And as we stated numerous times, the Department of Education has been an utter failure by any objective measure. Every single year they've been in existence, the American education system has gotten worse, and our children have gotten even stupider as they've rolled out programs that take them further away from educating our children and more into indoctrinating them.
My favorite is when some of these people on the left, Maisie, that senator from Hawaii, for instance, she's like, public education was great for me. And I'm like, if you're the poster child of public education, that is proof that it's failing, because she's an idiot. But Madison over here has a really good comment in the X chat. Madison Plummer says, yes, churning out the alphabet kids in droves, not even teaching them actual history, but propaganda. That's exactly what it is. They are not teaching these children anything. If anything, they should be teaching them how to think, not what to think. And there's a big difference there. And that's what they do. They've turned these, I don't even call them public schools anymore. They're government schools. They're liberal indoctrination camps. And that's exactly what it is. And people are really underestimating the power of that from the time a child is 4 years old to 18 years old, from pre-K all the way through graduating high school. They spend more time in these government schools than they do with you as a parent. And then, wow. And now look at all the things that they are pushing on these children. Yeah, think about it. I mean, when you get home from work and your kids go from school or whatever, I mean, you have an hour or two before it's bedtime. They get up and leave again. I truly mean this when I say this, and I say this as a parent. Like, and if you don't have kids, it's probably hard to understand. But like, this is the greatest scam in the history of the world, is where we convinced everyone that it was normal to take your child from the time they're 4 years old and send them out of the house to be raised by strangers so that you can go work and slave away at a job that doesn't care about you or any of those things, and have someone else raising your children. I know you make a lot of sacrifices along the way to avoid that. And we've done that here in my house, but I really think that parents need to, if possible, make the sacrifice of, and I'm not saying to even have to homeschool them, but I mean to send them to private school of some sort or something. But like, and then they send them into the super indoctrination camps of public universities. And this is, I love seeing that President Trump is starting to crack down on the public funding going to these places. And that's also why it's important to get rid of the Federal Department of Education, because then they can take those strings away, because all that money that's going from the Federal Department of Education to the states comes with strings attached. Oh, your state doesn't want to push the trans agenda on children in schools. You don't get the federal funding now, and now you can't educate your children. And that's one of the biggest issues right now, and one of the biggest reasons we need to abolish the Federal Department of Education.
Yeah, agreed. Well, let's go ahead and roll into our next topic. We got to get through a few more of these before we go. Democrats think a shutdown will help them. It won't. at this point, they just look like obstructionists. They cry and scream to the cameras constantly about how Trump's a dictator, blah, 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 while offering no solutions, no contrary anything, or not participating in things like this last budget bill. So if they think that's going to somehow further their political goals, I think they're sadly mistaken. And, at this point, I'm all for it. If they want to cheer on a government shutdown when it's always been a bad thing previously, I think this is going to further harm their reputation and their relationship with any voters dumb enough to still be supporting them. So, hey, I'm all in on this. And I do think, it got through the House already. And I do think, sabotage in the Senate is something I'm concerned about.
Well, absolutely. So I was reading, and I don't quote me on this, guys. I believe in order to avoid a shutdown on Friday, it's when the Senate is supposed to, or I guess that's when it takes place. So by Friday night, the Senate has to pass the same bill the Senate has to pass the same bill the House just sent over, the CR. And I'm pretty sure that in order to do so, we're going to need 7 or 8 Democrat votes to do so, and I believe they're going to push a shutdown. Which, for me personally, I don't really care. I don't care if they shut it down and the government never opens back up. To be honest with you, they're giving me what I want. If they force a shutdown, because people are going to quickly realize that it doesn't really affect them that much. And for the record, I say that as a landlord who has a couple of homes on Section 8 rent. Most of mine are not, but I do have a few. I will not get paid during that time, and I don't care. I really don't, because for the long-term health of our country, shut it down. I don't care if it ever opens back up. So, to the Democrats who are threatening a shutdown, don't threaten me with a good time. I'm here for it.
Yeah, exactly. I've said this before. I really think President Trump ought to make it known that if the Democrats force a shutdown, lay it right at their feet. Let them know that government workers will not be compensated for the time during the government shutdown like we normally do. We send them home on a vacation for a few days or a few weeks, depending on how long the shutdown lasts. Then we always give them their back pay. Well, let them know, all their little sycophants that are sabotaging Trump right now and trying to harm the American people's agenda, we're not going to pay them. So if they want to shut it down for 3 months, great. We'll just save some more money on payroll. Lay it at their feet. It's time to play hardball and stop playing patty cake politics with these retards that still think they have some element of control. Instead of trying to work with America and get things back on track, they're willing to sabotage things and shut things down because they think somehow it's going to help them. Well, I think they're about to get a big surprise.
Absolutely, and it's important for everybody to know that after the House passed their version of the bill, they normally would wait and let the Senate do whatever they want to do, maybe make amendments, send it back to the House, and the House left. They're no longer in D.C. They passed their bill and they left, and basically saying pass it or the government shut down is what they're telling the Senate right now. And Thaddeus, thank you for confirming it's 7 votes that the Democrats will have to come up with in order to avoid that. But it's actually, I was just reading, Thaddeus, you are correct, it is 7, but now it's technically 8 because Rand Paul has already come out and said that he's going to oppose the CR. So now we're going to need 8 Democrat votes to get it passed. And I don't know if listen, I despise the left, but one thing they're pretty daggone good at is sticking together, walking in lockstep with that. One of the things I want to know is, and hope if it shuts down or whatever, maybe I'll spend some time over the weekend to do it. I don't have time to do it today, but I want to know how many of these people, specifically Democrats right now, how many of them voted for this same CR back in December, but now they're going to oppose the exact same thing here in February, because I know that Rand Paul voted against it in December. So, I wish that he would just hold his nose and vote for it right now to move things forward. I think that the Trump administration's earned that in the first 2 months with all the cuts and everything that they're doing. I think that they've earned an extension, if you will. I despise CRs, and so I get where he's coming from on that. Same with Thomas Massie, but they voted against it originally. I think it's even more hypocritical for these Democrats who I almost bet you voted for this in December, and now they're turning around and opposing the exact same thing that they already voted for. And that's a pretty big issue. But yeah, we got until Friday, I believe, to avoid the shutdown.
Yeah, and that really just proves that to them it is all just politics. It's about power and control. Yeah, I don't know where they're going to find 8 Democrats at. Not in the Senate. And again, they're going to move in lockstep. Maybe they'll get Fetterman over. I can't really think of anybody else, especially now, especially with the beating they've taken over the last few months. With news like this, Democrats' internal polling shows their political brand in the gutter. Majority say the party doesn't fight for them. And we reported numerous times that they're hemorrhaging voters. Their donations from small donors are at record lows. Their approvals at a record low. And it's because of the policies they keep embracing and the actions they're taking. I mean, I'm sorry, but singing oppression hymns is not going to go get you new voters. Burning down Tesla dealerships and targeting people. A lot of these people that own Teslas and electric vehicles, they're Democrat voters. It wasn't Republicans going out and buying Teslas and whatever else for the last several years. I mean, yeah, now there's been a shift, and there's a lot of people buying cyber trucks, but they're primarily harming their own base and just disenfranchising them, pushing them away from the party. So even if they still hate President Trump, they're going to remember who did them the most harm, and maybe they just sit it out for the next election. Maybe they stop donating. That's what they're up against right now, and I don't see them correcting this anytime soon.
Well, shout out to Dan Dreyer in the Rumble chat, and shout out to Matt over here in the X chat. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Look, the Democrats are in trouble right now. I mean, they really are. And we were talking about this a little bit off air before the show, Mike, that all of them are now attempting to start their own podcast. You got Gavin Newsom launching a podcast. You got Michelle Obama launching a podcast.
Big Mike.
They're all doing that in response to the success that President Trump had during the 2024 campaign. We had joked multiple times during that campaign that he's going to be known as the podcast president because he was out here doing the podcast tour. And I think that the left has noticed that. They are now trying to go ahead and get ahead of this and lay the groundwork for the 2028 election. That's what they're doing right now. And make no mistake, that's the reason these people are launching these podcasts. They're hoping to have that more established going into probably the midterms and then the 2028 election. Gavin Newsom is using this podcast right now in an attempt to rebrand himself as a moderate of some sort on there. And it's going to be our job to continue bringing receipts to show that he's not a moderate, he's a left-wing extremist, and because that's his goal. He's going to use that podcast as a way to rebrand himself in hopes of probably a presidential run in 2028 or something. But it's going to be up to us to remind everyone of the truth about these people and what they really stand for.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just try to wedge in one more thing here before we go. Maui police chief named in Diddy Combs' lawsuit as co-conspirator. So apparently they're claiming that he helped Sean Puffy Combs cover up a number of rapes or sexual assaults. And, let's not forget who this guy is. Wasn't this the same guy that was the police chief for, what was it, the Las Vegas shooting and something else, too? Let me pull it up real quick.
Wow, there's no coincidences, I can tell you that. And look, if there's even a sliver of truth to this, he needs to be thrown in prison, and not just prison. He needs to be thrown in a prison that's not going to be very friendly towards him. I'm sorry. Well, none of them really are when you start messing with kids and everything. And so, but that's what needs to happen to these people. And once again, and you know what? Who was it? I'm so sorry if I don't give you credit for this. It was a really good comment earlier. I believe it was in the X chat. I should have highlighted it. I tried, but something X needs to update here. Anyway, somebody over here had said that they want to see General Flynn replace Pam Bondi as Attorney General. It might have been the Getter chat. I'm with that, but for the record, it was Sean over here in the Getter chat. Sean says that General Flynn needs to replace Pam Bondi as Attorney General, and these are the exact reasons why. Because General Flynn would go in there and grab these people and drag them out of there and arrest them, and that's what we need to see right now. I'm not very happy. I'm trying to be patient. I understand there's probably a lot going on that I don't understand. It's above my pay grade, if you will, but like, we want to see arrests. I'm sorry. I'm sick of the headlines that doesn't involve some sort of arrest. I start arresting people now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there's plenty to go on there, and I get it that some certain things she's got to develop a case that are going to take time. But there's plenty of people that I'm sure we already have enough to issue arrest warrants, bring them in, and start putting some pressure on them, because that's going to lead to more avenues to pursue as they just crack and give people further up the chain. And it is correct. This is the same sheriff from Lahaina, also the Vegas Strip and the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival.
Dude, that's not a coincidence. That's all I'm going to say. I know we're out of time. That's not a coincidence. That is crazy. And everything he's ever been associated with needs to be investigated at this point. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, and I feel like there's another incident that he's tied to that's not on this list. So I'm going to do a little more looking into this guy, and I will probably cover it in depth tomorrow. Last thing I want to leave you guys with, if nothing else, keep these people in Syria in your prayers. Up to 17,000 slaughtered in Syria as world remains silent. And a large portion of these people are Christians. Other ones are Muslim and other religions. But, in just a few days, it was 9,000, I believe, on Monday. We're up to 17,000 massacred now. So please keep these people in Syria in your prayers as the world just turns a blind eye to yet another massacre and slaughter from the religion of peace. But guys, again, I want to thank you for joining us today. Please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people to the news, the mainstream